As project managers, we can possibly work in a number of different organizational structures. So here are just 5 of the organizational structures that traditionally were quite important to know about for the test and know what our roles were and know what types of powers and authority we had in these different structures. So this is just going to be a fairly high-level overview of those points. There will be more information, so we'll provide quite a bit longer explanations of these different structures in the expanded materials, the secondary materials. This is just a high-level overview. We're going to start with the bottom of this column with functional organizations. And in functional organizations, the project manager has the least amount of power of any organization. In fact, the project manager has virtually no power at all. The project manager is just a glorified administrator, checking on the status of work packages, checking on the status of work being done in the project and reporting that status back to the person really in charge, the functional manager. As we move up through this column, we move from functional to weak matrix and then to balance and matrix. Every step of the way as we move up from weak matrix to balance matrix to strong to projectize, the project manager gains a little bit of power and the functional manager loses some power. In weak matrix, now the project manager is typically called a coordinator, kind of classically was called a coordinator. Still doesn't have a lot of power, but has the power to shift people around into different roles on the project. It's not until we get up to balance matrix that we have full-time project managers. In functional and weak matrix, the project manager is a part-time project manager and has other jobs assigned to him. But in balance matrix, the project manager, he or she now is full-time on the project and is called a project manager. And now the project manager's powers are relatively balanced, relatively equal to those of the functional manager. As we move up to strong matrix, now the project manager is stronger than the functional managers, has more power, so is very, very empowered, has a lot of authority. We're assuming for the test that by default, we're a project manager in either strong matrix or balanced, that we are full-time on projects. We've got quite a bit of authority. We're in one of those two. In projectized, there are no more functions, there are no more departments, no more functional managers. So the projectized organization structure is the most empowered position for the project manager. Is everything wonderful there? No, because now, compared to the other structures here, now at the end of the project, the team members on the project have to go scrambling and looking for another job. They don't have a home to return to. In any of the matrix, weak, balanced, and strong, they do have a home they can return to. And same thing in functional. But in projectized, once the project ends, they're quote unquote on the bench. They're no longer billable. And in today's world especially, that could be an unhappy place to be. That could be pretty risky. You could be looking for another job pretty quickly. Another thing to add here is that even though we have different levels of authority as project managers in these different structures, we've got next to no power in functional. As we move up to weak matrix, we've got a little bit of power, the power to shift people around into different roles. In balanced matrix, we're now sharing budgetary powers with the functional managers. In strong matrix, we're now stronger than the functional managers and such. So we've got different levels of power in all these different structures, but doesn't matter. Even in the structures, even in weak matrix, or perhaps even in functional, where we don't have all the powers that we would really like to have, Nonetheless, we are accountable. We can never blame anybody else if things go wrong. We don't have all the power we want, but we have to use those personal effectiveness skills, those people skills, those types of soft skills to get things done. We can't blame the functional manager. We can't blame other people if things don't go as well as we want. So in all these structures, the project manager is accountable. The buck stops with them. One thing more that I'd like to add about these different structures is the number of reporting lines in the different structures. In functional, the company is organized by functions or departments, which are often product lines. Maybe it's General Motors in the 1970s, and one function or department is Chevrolet. Another one is Cadillac, another is Oldsmobile. So it could be a company that divides itself up by product lines, or maybe it's geographical. Maybe there's East Coast operations, Midwest operations, Europe or EMEA, Asia Pacific and such. So there's a lot of ways to divide up the functions. But in functional, everybody's assigned, all the team members and the project manager too work in one department. So everybody has one reporting line. They report up through that department to their functional manager. This functional manager can be called department manager, functional manager, or line manager. In the 3 matrix, now everybody has 2 reporting lines. Everybody has a solid reporting line up through the function to the functional manager, but they also have a dotted line to whoever is running the project. So now things are more complex. There's more conflict. People are being pulled different directions. The functional manager is pulling one way, the project manager is pulling another. So there's more complexity in matrix. But the reason to become matrix is if you're matrix, a company can respond to a new market opportunity more quickly. They've got experience. They've got know-how of how to put together diverse teams, multifunctional teams, put them together quickly to go after a new opportunity, and they're willing to pay the price of the extra complexity and the conflict that exists in that. In projectized, the functions go away, the functional managers go away, so everybody is now reporting up through one column, up through their project to the project manager.